Chancellor Vextai stood alone in her private chamber, staring out at the stars. The council had been debating for 6 hours straight. In all her years of leadership, she had never seen the representatives so divided, so uncertain about their path forward. The humans waited patiently in the guest quarters. They had not pushed for an immediate answer. They had not threatened or demanded. They simply sat quietly, confident that logic would eventually win the day. A soft chime indicated someone was requesting entry. "Come in," Vextai called. Wing Marshal Zethkol entered, his pale blue skin showing the darker patches that indicated deep thought. "Chancellor, we need to make a decision. Our long-range sensors are detecting more movement at the galactic rim." "More devourer ships?" "Possibly. The signatures match what the humans showed us, but the contacts are much larger. If their estimates are correct, we may have less time than we thought." Vextai nodded slowly. She had spent the past few hours reviewing everything the humans had presented. Their technology, their alliance network, their military capabilities, their knowledge of the devourer threat. Every piece of evidence pointed to the same conclusion. "Summon the council," she said finally. "It is time to vote." 20 minutes later, the council chamber was full again. The 12 species sat in their designated areas, but the atmosphere was completely different from that morning. The casual arrogance of ancient authority had been replaced by the focused attention of beings who finally understood they were fighting for survival. The humans entered and took their seats at the central table. They looked exactly the same as they had hours before, calm and confident, but now the council members saw them differently. They were not upstart newcomers demanding attention. They were experienced leaders offering salvation. "We have reached our decision," Chancellor Vextai announced. "By a vote of 9-3, the Galactic Council accepts the human proposal for alliance." Captain Morrison nodded respectfully. "Thank you, Chancellor. I know this was not an easy choice." "It was the only logical choice," Executor Thrix said. The hegemony leader had been one of the strongest opponents of the alliance, but the battle with the Devourer scouts had changed his mind. "Your methods work. Ours do not." "What happens now?" High Arbiter Kelneth asked. Ambassador Parker activated her display device. "Now we begin the real work. We have approximately 14 months to prepare for the main Devourer invasion. We need to integrate Council forces with our existing alliance network, share technology and tactical knowledge, and establish unified command structures." Dr. Chen stood up, adjusting his glasses. "We also need to begin evacuation planning for non-essential populations. The Devourers will target the most populated systems first. We must be ready to move billions of beings to safer locations." Wing Marshal Zethkol leaned forward with interest. "You have evacuation plans already prepared?" "We have been working on them for 2 years," Commander Blake replied. "Our alliance partners have been constructing hidden colonies in remote systems, far from major trade routes and population centers. If the worst happens, we can preserve the essential elements of galactic civilization." Chancellor Vextai felt a mix of relief and amazement. These humans had been planning for every possible outcome, while the Council had been debating trade regulations and border disputes. "What do you need from us immediately?" she asked. Captain Morrison consulted a small device. "Fleet integration is the highest priority. We need your ship commanders to work directly with our tactical specialists. Traditional Council formations will not survive against Devourer weapons. This will require major changes in our military doctrine," Wing Marshal Zethkol pointed out. "Yes, it will," Commander Blake agreed. "Your officers will need to learn to think flexibly, to adapt quickly to changing situations. They will need to work closely with species they have never encountered before." "Speaking of new species," Ambassador Parker said, "we should introduce you to some of your new allies." She activated the communication system. Immediately, the chamber filled with alien voices speaking in dozens of languages. But now the translation systems were working, and the council members could understand what was being said. "Greetings from the Vorthak Collective," came a voice that sounded like wind through leaves. "We pledge our forest ships to the defense of all free peoples. The Crystal Harmony offers our computational networks," announced a voice that rang like musical chimes. "Our mathematics will help coordinate fleet movements across vast distances. The Void Dancers bring our knowledge of space-time manipulation," whispered a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We can hide entire fleets from enemy sensors." One by one, 31 different species introduced themselves to the Council. Each offered unique capabilities that could contribute to the common defense. The council members listened in growing amazement as they realized the scope of what the humans had accomplished. "How did you convince so many different species to work together?" Chancellor Vextai asked. "We listened to them," Captain Morrison replied simply. "We learned what they needed, what they feared, what they hoped for. We showed them that they were not alone, that they had value, that their contributions mattered. Most importantly," Ambassador Parker added, "we treated them as equals, not as junior partners or primitive species to be protected, but as fellow civilizations with their own wisdom and strength." Dr. Chen activated a new display showing the integrated fleet formations. Council ships were scattered throughout the Alliance formations, their positions chosen to maximize their strengths while covering their weaknesses. "Your energy weapons complement the Vorthak biological systems perfectly," he explained to Wing Marshal Zeth Cole. "The Hegemony's adaptive armor works well with Crystal Harmony shielding. Depths Dweller stealth technology enhances Void Dancer space manipulation." Commander Blake pointed to specific tactical formations. "Every species brings something unique to the battle. The Devourers have faced individual civilizations before, but they have never encountered anything like this level of cooperation and integration." "When do we begin the integration process?" Executor Thrix asked. "Immediately," Captain Morrison replied. "Our first joint training exercises start tomorrow. We have established coordination centers in 12 different systems where Council and Alliance forces can work together." Chancellor Vextai stood up, her decision made. "Then we had better get started. Wing Marshal, begin transferring our fleet commanders to the integration centers. High Arbiter, coordinate with the Alliance logistics networks for supply and support." "Chancellor," Ambassador Parker said, "there is one more thing. We would like to propose a new structure for galactic governance, something more flexible and responsive than the current council system." "What do you have in mind?" Dr. Chen activated a final display. It showed a new organizational chart that looked nothing like the traditional council hierarchy. Instead of a single ruling body, there were multiple specialized councils working together: Military Defense Council, Scientific Research Council, Economic Coordination Council, and Diplomatic Relations Council. Each council handles its area of expertise, Ambassador Parker explained, but they all coordinate through a central communication network. Decisions can be made quickly when needed, but important issues still get full discussion and debate. "And who leads this new government?" Wing Marshal Zeth Cole asked. "No one," Captain Morrison replied, "and everyone. Leadership rotates based on expertise and situation. If we face a military crisis, the Defense Council takes charge. For scientific problems, the Research Council leads. No single species or individual holds permanent power." High Arbiter Kelneth's gills fluttered thoughtfully. "This is completely different from anything we have tried before." "Yes, it is," Ambassador Parker agreed. "But the old system was designed for a smaller, simpler galaxy. We need something that can handle the complexity and challenges of the future." Chancellor Vextai looked around the chamber one final time. In a single day, the political structure that had governed the galaxy for 3,000 years had been completely transformed. It should have felt like an ending, but instead it felt like a beginning. "Very well," she said. "Let us begin building this new future together." As the council members filed out to begin their new roles, Captain Morrison remained seated at the central table. Ambassador Parker joined him, looking satisfied but tired. "Think it will work?" she asked quietly. Morrison looked at the tactical displays still showing the integrated fleet formations, the coordination networks, the evacuation plans, and the faces of dozens of alien species ready to fight together for survival. "It has to work," he replied, "because if it does not, there will not be anyone left to try something else." Through the chamber's transparent ceiling, the stars looked down on the beginning of a new age. Somewhere beyond the galactic rim, the Devourers continued their approach, but now they would face something they had never encountered before, a united galaxy that refused to surrender without a fight. Wing Marshal Zethkol stood up abruptly, his pale blue skin now dark purple with anger. "You expect us to believe these wild claims without proof? Ancient ships, machine devourers, galactic threats? This sounds like the fantasy of a primitive species trying to scare us into submission." Captain Morrison looked at Commander Blake and nodded slightly. Blake pulled out a small device that looked like a simple communication pad. "Proof is reasonable to ask for," Blake said calmly. He pressed a single button on the device. Every screen in the council chamber flickered. The lights dimmed for a moment, then returned to normal. The environmental systems made a soft humming sound before resuming their usual silent operation. Chancellor Vexitai felt her blood turn cold. "What did you just do?" "We accessed your station's main computer network," Blake replied as if he had just commented on the weather. "From here, we could control life support, artificial gravity, defensive systems, communications, or any other system on this station." Executor Thrix's mandibles clicked rapidly. "Impossible. Our security systems are quantum encrypted. No external source can penetrate them." Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses with a small smile. "Your security systems are very good, but they were designed to stop attacks from known galactic civilizations. The predecessor archives contain detailed information about quantum encryption systems. We learned how to break codes that have not been invented yet." High Arbiter Kelneth's gills fluttered frantically in his water suit. "This is an act of war. You have violated our most sacred security protocols." "We have demonstrated a capability," Ambassador Parker corrected. "If we wanted to harm you, we would have done so already. Instead, we are showing you that the old ways of thinking about security and defense are no longer adequate." Commander Blake pressed another button on his device. Suddenly, the air in the chamber filled with voices, dozens of different alien languages could be heard speaking at once. "What is this?" Chancellor Vexitai demanded. "Live communications from our allied species," Captain Morrison explained. "They are all listening to this conversation right now. Representatives from 31 different civilizations are hearing every word spoken in this chamber." The luminary delegate flickered bright red with indignation. "You are broadcasting classified council proceedings without permission?" "We are keeping our allies informed," Ambassador Parker replied. "Transparency is one of the principles of our alliance. No secret deals, no hidden agendas, no decisions made behind closed doors." Dr. Chen activated his display again. This time it showed live video feeds from dozens of different star systems. Each screen showed different alien species in their own meeting chambers, all watching the council proceedings with intense interest. "The tree-like Vorthak from the Outer Rim," he said, pointing to one screen. "The crystalline collective from the galactic core. The energy beings from the void between stars. They are all here with us, in spirit, if not in body." Wing Marshal Zethkol stared at the screens in shock. "How many ships do these allies of yours command?" "Show him," Captain Morrison said to Blake. The display changed to show a tactical map of the local star system. Blue dots represented council military vessels. There were 12 ships total, mostly patrol craft and escort vessels, but scattered throughout the system were hundreds of green dots. Ships of every size and design, from small scouts to massive battle cruisers. They had been there all along, hidden from Council sensors by technology the aliens could not detect. 647 vessels, Commander Blake reported. All armed, all crewed by beings who have pledged to defend this system if necessary. You brought an invasion fleet to our home system? Executor Thrix roared, rising to his full height. We brought protection, Captain Morrison replied calmly. We knew this meeting might not go well. We also knew that the Devourer scouts might already be in this area of space. We came prepared for any possibility. As if summoned by his words, warning alarms began sounding throughout the station. Red lights flashed, and the chamber's main computer announced in its mechanical voice, Alert! Unknown vessels detected at system perimeter. Classification: hostile. All defensive units report to battle stations. Chancellor Vextai's face went pale. Show me the threat assessment. The main viewing screen activated, displaying the space around the system. At the very edge of sensor range, dark shapes were moving against the stars. They were large, angular, and completely unlike any ship design in Council records. 5 vessels, the computer reported. Configuration unknown. Technology unknown. Intent appears hostile based on movement patterns. Wing Marshal Zeth Cole was already moving toward the communication console. All Council ships, form defensive formation Alpha 7. Prepare for... Marshal, stop, Captain Morrison interrupted. Your ships cannot handle this threat. How dare you? Zeth Cole began. Because those are Devourer scouts, Dr. Chen said grimly. And if you attack them with traditional Council tactics, they will destroy your entire fleet in minutes. Commander Blake was already speaking into his communication device. All Allied vessels, this is Blake. We have 5 Devourer scouts at system perimeter. Implement defensive pattern Gamma 4. Do not, repeat, do not allow them to reach the inhabited planets. The tactical display updated as the hidden Allied fleet began to move. The green dots spread out in a complex formation that seemed to make no sense to traditional military thinking. What are they doing? Wing Marshal Zeth Cole demanded. That formation leaves huge gaps in coverage. Those gaps are intentional, Blake explained. Devourer tactics rely on overwhelming firepower concentrated at weak points. We are making them think they see weak points where we are actually strongest. The first contact between the forces happened faster than anyone expected. The Devourer scouts fired weapons that seemed to tear holes in space itself. Where the beams touched, Allied ships simply vanished. They are being destroyed. High Arbiter Kelneth gasped. No, Blake replied, watching his tactical display carefully. They are being displaced. The Devourers think they are destroying our ships, but we are actually moving them out of the way at the last moment. Suddenly, the Allied ships reappeared, in different positions surrounding the Devourer scouts. They opened fire with weapons that used principles the Council had never seen before. Energy redirection systems, Dr. Chen explained as they watched. We take the power from their own weapons and turn it back against them. The predecessors developed this technology during their war, but they never had enough ships to use it effectively. How many ships are required? Chancellor Vextai asked. At least 50 vessels working in perfect coordination, Blake replied. No single species in the Council has that many ships in one place, but our alliance does. The battle was over in 10 minutes. 4 of the 5 Devourer scouts were destroyed. The 5th managed to escape, but not before the Allied fleet had gathered detailed sensor readings about its technology. Impressive, Executor Thrix admitted grudgingly. But this was just a scouting force. What happens when they send their main fleet? Captain Morrison's expression was grim. That is why we need the Council's help. Our alliance is strong, but the Devourers are stronger. We need every ship, every weapon, every brilliant mind in the galaxy working together. Ambassador Parker stepped forward. We have shown you our capabilities. We have proven that the threat is real. We have demonstrated that our methods work. The question now is simple. Will you join us, or will you face the coming storm alone? The chamber was silent except for the soft hum of the life support systems. The council members looked at the tactical display, still showing the debris from the destroyed Devourer scouts, and realized that everything had changed. Wing Marshal Zethkol spoke first. "What would you need from us?" "Everything," Captain Morrison replied. "Your ships, your technology, your knowledge, your people. In return, we offer the same from our alliance network." Chancellor Vextai looked around the chamber at her fellow council members. She saw fear in their eyes, but also something else. For the first time in centuries, she saw hope. "We need time to discuss this among ourselves," she said finally. "Ambassador." Parker nodded. "Of course. But remember, Chancellor, time is the one thing we do not have very much of." The council chamber exploded into chaos. Representatives from all 12 species began shouting in their native languages. The hegemony delegates clicked their mandibles so rapidly it sounded like machine gun fire. The luminari flickered between bright white and deep red, their energy forms pulsing with anger and fear. Chancellor Vextai raised her long arms, calling for order. It took several minutes before the noise died down enough for anyone to speak clearly. Executor Thrix was the first to break the relative silence. He stood to his full height, his black insect eyes reflecting the chamber lights. "This is impossible," he declared. "No species develops this quickly. Our own advancement took thousands of years." Captain Morrison remained calm in his chair. "Different species develop differently, Executor. Humans have certain advantages." "What advantages?" demanded Wing Marshal Zethkol, the Zephyrian military commander. His pale blue skin had darkened to almost purple with suspicion. "What makes your species so special?" Dr. Chen stood up slowly. He looked like a harmless old professor, but his next words would shake the foundation of everything the Council believed about galactic development. "We are adaptable," he said simply. "Most species in this galaxy follow the same pattern. They develop one primary strength and build their entire civilization around it. The Zephyrians became masters of energy manipulation. The hegemony perfected biological engineering. The depths dwellers learned to control gravity and water." He paused, looking around the chamber. "Humans do something different. We take the best ideas from everywhere and make them work together." "Impossible," High Arbiter Kelneth bubbled from his water suit. "Each technology requires specialized knowledge that takes centuries to master." "Not if you approach it correctly," Dr. Chen replied. He activated his portable display again. This time it showed a detailed timeline of human technological development. 50 years ago, we found something on our home world, something that changed everything. The display showed images of a crashed spacecraft buried deep in Earth's ice. The ship was clearly alien, but its design was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. It was ancient, possibly millions of years old. "We found this ship in Antarctica," Dr. Chen continued. "It had been there for so long that ice had completely covered it. The builders were long dead, but their technology was still functional." Chancellor Vextai felt her heart skip a beat. She recognized some of the symbols on the ancient ship. They were from the old ones, a civilization that had vanished from the galaxy before the Council was even formed. "The predecessors," she whispered. "You know of them?" Captain Morrison asked with interest. "Stories, legends," Chancellor Vextai replied. "They disappeared millions of years ago. We thought they were myths." "They were real," Dr. Chen said, "and they left us a gift." Their computer systems contained detailed information about dozens of galactic civilizations, including many that still exist today. We learned about all of you long before we achieved space travel. The implications were staggering. The ancient predecessors had been more advanced than any current civilization. If humans had access to their technology and knowledge, it explained everything. Their rapid development, their detailed intelligence about council affairs, their confidence in dealing with much older species. But Executor Thrix was not satisfied. Even with ancient technology, you could not have achieved so much so quickly. There must be something else, Commander Blake finally spoke. There is. We think differently than you do. Explain, Wing Marshal Zethkol demanded. Your species all think in straight lines? Blake said. You see a problem? You apply your traditional solution. If that does not work, you try harder with the same solution. Humans think in circles. We try one approach, and if it fails, we try something completely different. Ambassador Parker activated another display. It showed a comparison of military tactics used by different species. The Zephyrians always used energy weapons and speed. The hegemony relied on overwhelming numbers and biological weapons. The Depths dwellers used stealth and surprise attacks. Human military doctrine, Parker explained, combines elements from all of these approaches plus tactics we developed ourselves. We study how our enemies fight, then we do something they do not expect. This is why our allied species have been so successful, Captain Morrison added. We teach them to think beyond their traditional limitations. A species that was weak in space combat might be excellent at intelligence gathering. A peaceful race might be perfect for diplomatic missions. We help everyone find ways to contribute. High Arbiter Kelneth's gills fluttered nervously. You speak of military doctrine and intelligence gathering. You are preparing for war. We are preparing for survival, Dr. Chen corrected. The external threat I mentioned is not theoretical. We have been tracking it for 2 years. The display changed, again showing deep space sensor readings. The data was complex, but the pattern was clear. Massive objects were moving through the void between galaxies, heading directly toward their spiral arm. What are they? Chancellor Vextai asked, though she was not sure she wanted to know the answer. We call them the Devourers, Captain Morrison said grimly. They appear to be a machine intelligence of some kind. They consume everything in their path, planets, stars, entire solar systems. They turn matter into energy to fuel their expansion. How do you know this? Wing Marshal Zethkol demanded. Because they have done it before, Dr. Chen replied. The predecessor archives contain records of previous Devourer invasions. They come every few million years, sweep through the galaxy, consume everything they can reach, then move on to the next galaxy. The predecessors fought them once and lost. The chamber fell deadly silent. The idea of machine intelligences that could consume entire star systems was beyond the worst nightmares of any council species. The predecessors left detailed records of the invasion, Dr. Chen continued. The Devourers are not just powerful, they are smart. They learn from every battle, adapt to every defense. Traditional military thinking will not stop them. But you believe your approach will? Chancellor Vextai asked. We believe that cooperation between many different species has a better chance than any single approach, Ambassador Parker replied. The predecessors tried to fight alone, using only their own technology and tactics. They failed. We are building something they never had. A true alliance where every species contributes. Their unique strengths. Executor Thrix's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. How long do we have? 18 months? Possibly less, Captain Morrison said. Our long-range sensors detected the first scout ships entering the Galactic Rim 3 days ago. 3 days ago? Chancellor Vextai's voice rose in alarm. Why did our sensors not detect them? Because your sensors are designed to detect known threats, Commander Blake replied. The Devourers use technology that your equipment cannot recognize. Only the predecessor archives contained enough information to identify their signatures. The weight of the situation settled over the chamber like a heavy blanket. Everything they had been arguing about, jurisdiction, protocol, ancient traditions, suddenly seemed trivial compared to the threat bearing down on them. What do you propose we do? High Arbiter Kelneth asked quietly. Ambassador Parker stepped forward. Form a new alliance. Combine the resources and knowledge of the Council with our network of allied species. Pool our technologies, share our intelligence, coordinate our defenses, create something the Devourers have never faced before, a united galaxy. And if we refuse? Wing Marshal Zethkol asked. Captain Morrison's expression was grim but determined. Then we will do everything we can to protect our allies and preserve what we can of galactic civilization. But our chances will be much better if we all stand together. The council members looked at each other with new understanding. The confident humans sitting at their table were not just ambitious newcomers, trying to seize power. They were fellow survivors trying to save everyone from a threat that made all their political differences meaningless. Chancellor Vextai realized that the galaxy had changed forever in the past hour. The old order was ending whether they liked it or not. The only question was whether it would end in cooperation or in flames. Ambassador Lisa Parker stood up slowly. The chamber fell silent as every alien eye focused on her. She did not look nervous or excited like most species did during their first council meeting. Instead, she looked like someone who had been preparing for this moment her entire life. "Honored representatives," she began, her voice carrying easily across the vast chamber. "We come here today not as supplicants seeking your protection, but as neighbors offering partnership." Chancellor Vextai's pale blue skin darkened slightly. In Zephyrian culture, this meant confusion or concern. "Partnership implies equality," she said carefully. "Your species has just achieved space travel. We have been among the stars for millennia." Ambassador Parker smiled. "Age does not always equal wisdom, Chancellor. And sometimes fresh eyes can see problems that experienced ones have learned to ignore." She gestured to Dr. Chen, who activated another device. The holographic display expanded, filling the center of the chamber with a three-dimensional map of the entire galaxy. But this was not like any map the Council had ever seen. Red zones marked areas of conflict. Yellow areas showed regions with economic problems. Green sections indicated stable territories. But most shocking of all were the gray areas marked as unexplored or abandoned. Your council controls approximately 37% of this galaxy, Dr. Chen said, adjusting his glasses. Yet your maps show you claiming sovereignty over nearly 60% of known space. Executor Thrix's mandibles clicked angrily. "Those regions are under our protection. We maintain order there." "Do you?" Commander Blake asked quietly. He pointed to several gray zones. "These systems have been sending distress signals for the past 40 years. Pirates operate freely in 7 major trade routes. 3 entire species have gone extinct while waiting for council aid that never came." The Luminari delegate flickered brightly with indignation. "We cannot be everywhere at once. The galaxy is vast." "That is precisely our point," Ambassador Parker said. "The current system is failing because it was designed for a smaller, simpler galaxy. The Council tries to control everything from this single station, but you do not have the resources or the flexibility to manage such a vast territory." High Arbiter Kelneth's gills fluttered rapidly in his water suit. "And you believe your species can do better? You have one world and a handful of colonies." Captain Morrison leaned forward. "We have one world, yes, but we have something else. We have friends." The display changed again. Now it showed communication links stretching across the galaxy like a vast web. The links connected dozens of star systems, many of them in the gray zones that the Council had written off as unimportant. "For the past 20 years, Dr. Chen explained, we have been making contact with species that the Council has never approached. Some are pre-spaceflight civilizations that you consider too primitive to bother with. Others are spacefaring races that you deem too small or too remote to be worth your attention." The display zoomed in on specific systems. Images appeared showing various alien species. Some looked like giant trees with moving branches. Others resembled crystalline formations that pulsed with inner light. There were slug-like creatures, that built beautiful cities underwater, and energy beings that lived in the space between stars. The Vorthak in the Outer Rim, Ambassador Parker said, pointing to one image. You classified them as a pre-industrial species 200 years. Egoan never checked again. They achieved spaceflight 50 years ago and have been sending messages asking for contact. They received no response from the Council. The Crystal Collective near the galactic core, she continued. You decided they were not truly alive because they are silicon-based rather than carbon-based. They have developed mathematics and physics theories that could advance your technology by centuries. Chancellor Vextai felt a cold knot forming in her stomach. How many species have you contacted? 47, Captain Morrison said simply, and we have formal agreements with 31 of them. The chamber erupted again. Formal agreements meant treaties, trade deals, mutual defense pacts. New species were not supposed to make such arrangements without council oversight. It was one of the most basic laws of galactic civilization. This is illegal, Executor Thrix declared, rising from his chair. All first contact protocols must be approved by this council. You have violated fundamental galactic law. Commander Blake's expression did not change. Whose law? He asked. The species we contacted were never part of your council. They never agreed to follow your rules, neither did we. You cannot simply ignore 3,000 years of precedent, Chancellor Vextai protested. We can, Ambassador Parker said calmly, and we have. The question is not whether we have the right to make these agreements. The question is whether you want to benefit from them. She activated another control. The display now showed fleet positions throughout the galaxy. Blue dots represented Council military forces. Red dots showed known pirate groups and hostile factions. But scattered throughout the display were green dots that had not been there before. Human vessels? High Arbiter Kelneth asked. Human and allied vessels, Dr. Chen confirmed. Our 31 treaty partners have contributed ships and personnel to joint defense forces. We now have the ability to patrol regions that the Council has not been able to protect for decades. The implications hit the Council members like a physical blow. These humans had not just made contact with ignored species, they had organized them into a military alliance. In less than 20 years, they had created a power structure that rivaled the Council itself. What are your intentions? Chancellor Vextai asked. Her voice was steady, but Captain Morrison could see the fear in her large, dark eyes. To fix the problems that the current system cannot solve, Ambassador Parker replied. Piracy, economic inequality, technological stagnation, and most importantly, the external threats that are coming whether we are ready or not. External threats? Executor Thrix demanded. Dr. Chen's expression grew serious. Our deep space monitoring stations have detected massive energy signatures beyond the galactic rim. Something is out there, and it is coming this way. Our best estimates suggest arrival in 18 to 24 months. The chamber fell silent. External threats were theoretical nightmares that the Council preferred not to think about. The galaxy was vast, and they had always assumed that any threat from outside would take millions of years to reach them. You are certain of this? Chancellor, Vexti whispered. We have shared our data with our allied species, Captain Morrison said. Their scientists have confirmed our calculations. The threat is real, and it is much closer than you think. Ambassador Parker stepped closer to the central podium. The current Council system cannot handle this threat. You are too bureaucratic, too slow to make decisions, too dependent on ancient protocols that no longer work. By the time you finish debating what to do, the enemy will be here. But there is another way, she continued. Humanity proposes a new alliance, not one based on the dominance of older species over younger ones, but one based on merit, capability, and mutual cooperation. We have proven that such an alliance can work. Our treaty partners have seen their security improve, their economies grow, and their technological capabilities advance. She gestured to the star map still floating above them. Join us, and together we can face whatever is coming. Refuse, and face the future alone, while we protect those who have chosen to stand. With us, the silence stretched for long minutes. The council members looked at each other, then at the confident humans who sat waiting for their answer. Finally, Chancellor Vextai spoke. "You are asking us to abandon everything we have built over 3 millennia. Captain Morrison shook his head. "We are asking you to save it by making it better. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Time is running out for all of us." The massive space station Nexus Prime hung in the darkness, like a silver jewel against the stars. It was the size of a small moon, spinning slowly around the planet Kepler 442b. The station had been home to the Galactic Council for over 3,000 years. Today, something was different. Inside the Great Council chamber, 12 different alien species sat in their special chairs. The room was huge, with walls that curved up toward a glass ceiling. Through that ceiling, the stars looked down on the most important meeting in galactic history. Chancellor Vextai stood at the center of the chamber. She was tall and thin, like all Zephyrians, with pale blue skin that seemed to glow in the soft light. Her long fingers drummed against the speaking podium as she waited. The other council members whispered among themselves in dozens of different languages. The hegemony representatives clicked their sharp mandibles together. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and black eyes that never blinked. Their leader, Executor Thrix, kept checking the time display on his wrist device. Near the back of the chamber, the Depths Dwellers sat in their water-filled environmental suits. Their fish-like bodies moved slowly inside the clear containers. High Arbiter Kelneth's gills fluttered with nervousness. The luminary delegates were the strangest of all. They had no solid bodies, just glowing energy that took roughly human shapes. When they were worried, they flickered like candles in the wind. Today, they flickered constantly. Chancellor Vextai had called this emergency meeting for one reason. 3 months ago, their long-range sensors had detected something impossible. A new species had developed faster than light travel. They called themselves humans, and they came from a small blue planet in a distant spiral arm of the galaxy. This should have been routine. The Council had made first contact with hundreds of species over the millennia. The process was always the same. They would send exploration ships to study the new species from a distance. Then, when the time was right, they would make careful contact. The new species would be amazed and grateful. They would ask for guidance and protection. Eventually, they might earn junior membership in the Council, but the humans had done something no species had ever done before. They had found the Council first. A soft chime echoed through the chamber. All conversation stopped. The main viewing screen flickered to life, showing the space around the station. A ship was approaching, but it was unlike anything the Council had ever seen. The human vessel was smaller than most Council ships, but it moved with purpose and confidence. Its hull was dark gray with blue markings along the sides. The ship's name was painted in white letters, UNS Liberty. "They are requesting permission to dock," announced the station's computer in its calm, mechanical voice. Chancellor Vextai nodded, slowly. "Grant their request. Direct them to Docking Bay 7. 30 minutes later, the chamber doors opened with a soft hiss. 4 figures walked in, and the entire room fell silent. The humans looked remarkably similar to several other species, but there was something different about them. They moved with confidence, their heads held high. Their eyes took in everything around them with obvious intelligence and curiosity. The man in front wore a dark blue uniform with silver insignia on his shoulders. His hair was brown and cut short, in a military style. His name was Captain Jake Morrison, though the Council did not know this yet. Behind him walked a woman in formal diplomatic robes. She had blonde hair pulled back neatly and green eyes that missed nothing. This was Ambassador Lisa Parker. She carried herself like someone who had never been intimidated by anyone or anything. The third human was an older man with gray hair and wire-rimmed glasses. Dr. Kevin Chen wore the simple clothes of a scientist, but his mind held secrets that would soon shock the entire galaxy. The last member of the group was younger, with dark skin and alert eyes that constantly scanned for threats. Commander Ryan Blake looked like a soldier, which he was, but he was also much more than that. The four humans walked straight to the center of the chamber. They did not bow. They did not ask for permission. They simply took seats at the main council table, as if they had every right to be there. Chancellor Vexatai felt her breath catch in her throat. In 3,000 years of council history, no one had ever done such a thing. New species were supposed to stand in the designated area and wait to be acknowledged. They were supposed to show proper respect for the ancient wisdom of the council. "Welcome," Chancellor Vexatai said carefully, "to the Galactic Council. I am Chancellor Vexatai of the Zephyrian Collective. We have been expecting you." Captain Morrison smiled. It was not the nervous smile of someone meeting their superiors. It was the confident smile of an equal greeting other equals. "Thank you, Chancellor," he said in clear, unaccented galactic standard. "I am Captain Jake Morrison of the United Nations, of Earth. This is Ambassador Lisa Parker, Dr. Kevin Chen, and Commander Ryan Blake." The fact that the human spoke perfect galactic standard caused another stir. Most new species needed translators for their first contact. How had these humans learned their language? "We appreciate your invitation," Captain Morrison continued, "though we should mention that we have been aware of your council for quite some time." Executor Thrix's mandibles clicked rapidly. "How long have you been watching us?" he demanded. "Ambassador." Parker stood gracefully. "Approximately 200 years, she said calmly. The chamber erupted. Representatives from all 12 species began talking at once. How was this possible? Their security was perfect. No primitive species could observe them without being detected. 200 years? Chancellor Vextai repeated. "That is impossible. Your species only achieved faster-than-light travel recently." Dr. Chen adjusted his glasses and smiled. "That is correct. We achieved faster-than-light travel only 15 years ago. But we have been listening to your communications much longer than that." "Listening to our communications?" High Arbiter Kelneth bubbled from his water suit. "Our signals are encrypted with quantum algorithms. No primitive species could decode them." "We are not a primitive species," Commander Blake said quietly. His voice was calm, but there was steel underneath it. "We are simply new to space travel." Ambassador Parker opened a small device on the table. A holographic display appeared above it, showing detailed star charts of council space. Red dots marked the positions of every council fleet, every major installation, every trade route. "We know about your mining operations in the Vega system," she said conversationally. "We know about the border dispute between the hegemony and the Zephyrians in Sector 7. We know about the pirate raids that you have been unable to stop for the past 6 months." Chancellor Vex Tai felt cold. The information was accurate, all of it. Some of it was classified at the highest levels. How could these humans know such things? "What do you want?" she asked finally. Captain Morrison leaned back in his chair. "We want to talk," he said simply. "We have some ideas that might interest you." The four humans sat calmly as the most powerful beings in the galaxy stared at them in shock. They had walked into the council chamber like they owned the place, and somehow that no longer seemed like arrogance. It seemed like confidence backed by knowledge and power that the council was only beginning to understand.